Hi, this is Karen O'Brien, and I'm going to go over the basic mapper video. So the tutorial that should accompany this video will be lesson 6. It's not going to be perfect. What I'm going to show you might be a little bit different, but everything that you need to know is in lesson 6. And there's a 3-part series because some of the more advanced mapping tools will be covered in different videos. So again, this is this is GDS and Mapper lesson 6. So what you do is I have the program opened in GDS. I don't need it open in GDS to run Mapper, but you do need to run it to run Mapper. So I'm going to just run Mapper from GDS by clicking File and then Run Mapper, and then we'll go with Mapper Pro. All right, then I'm going to just get rid of GDS. We don't really need it. We'll come back to it when we need it. Okay, to load a project into Mapper, you go and you find the file fplane.dat. So click File, Read Results, fplane.dat, and Open. And Mapper will load the project. So the first thing that you get is the ground surface elevation. And we'll just go over some of the simple ways and simple tools that we use for basic mapping. So let's start with the zoom tools. So just like GDS, when you are in Mapper, your default cursor mode is the select mode, and that is also the way that you zoom. So if I click and drag any rectangle, you can see that I can zoom. If I need to go back to the previous zoom, that is this little button here with the magnifying glass and the little negative sign. And if I want to zoom extent, I use the little magnifying glass with the 1 in it. So if I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here so that I can show you something with the pan tools. So your pan tool for Mapper is here. If you click on that, you can pan, or you can click the control button and then use the arrow keys to pan. So that's a nice way to pan without having to switch your cursor. To get back to the regular default mode, you can use the select button. All right, let's go back out to the full display. Now you can see down here you have some boxes that have some specific values in them related to the results. The X and Y coordinate are just the position of your cursor on the map. The first cell is the grid element number. The second cell is the surface elevation, that's just ground elevation. Then you have the maximum water surface elevation, the flow depth, the maximum flow depth, and the maximum velocity. Let's see. So that's the bottom boxes. And let's go over some of the basic plots. So we have here the plotting options in these drop-down menus. So we start with ground surface elevation. That's what we've always been looking at. That's kind of your default plot. Maximum water surface elevation, maximum flow depth. This is the maximum flow depth regardless of time. There's no time involved with this specific variable. Final flow depth. This is the flow depth at the very last output interval of the model. So whatever you ended on, this is that map. Maximum channel flow depth. We had a 1D channel in here. You can see it right here. That's your maximum channel with 1D channel. Maximum street flow depth. You can see here that we had a small street in this project. That's the green here. You don't see depth everywhere because the water kind of limited to this area. Okay. And the combined channel and maximum flow depth is this one. There's also some velocity options. I'm going to close this. We'll come back to it later. The maximum velocity is just the maximum velocity at any cell, starting at 0 and up to 5.6 feet per second. Maximum velocity vectors. You can see that these are not actually vectors. They are just maximum velocities and the general flow direction. It's not actually a vector. There is an actual vector shape file for velocity, but this one is just a little bit more simple. You got your street velocity, channel velocity, and your final flow velocity. I don't really use these two. I just don't have a need for them, but this final flow velocity, every once in a while I might use that. And every once in a while you'll see that when I click something that this table comes up, not for everything. So when it comes up, close it. If you want to get it back, it's in the view menu. It's just this table of variables. I don't use it too often. Duration of inundation. So my duration of inundation is set to 1 foot. And this is any cell that was the time that any cell was under 1 foot or more of water. That's this time in hours. And the way that you get that is to come in here to GDS, File, Run Flow2D, and you can see here that your flow depth for the depth duration analysis can be set here. Then you run the model and you can get your flow depth analysis. Okay, we also have the impact force. The impact force for the way the impact force works is that you get a value that is in pound per foot. So you can apply that linearly to a feature and then you would get the impact on that feature. So if you had a wall or a building or something inside any given cell, you would apply that impact force to the length of that feature to get the impact on that feature. Impact force, got your static pressure here, specific energy, and a levy freeboard. I will come back to levy freeboard because this isn't the best way to look at levy freeboard. So we'll come back to that when we open a different project, maybe in a different video or maybe in this video. You also have some time dependent variables. So this would be the time to 1 foot. Any cell that reached 1 foot of depth gets a time to 1 foot. So this isn't the time this is the time it took for that cell to get to 1 foot. It's not like the depth duration analysis. Oops. Time to 2 foot, same thing, except for 2 feet. And then time to max, everything should get a value because everything that you see here had a flow depth, regardless of how small it was. And this tells you the time it took for that specific cell to max out. There are also some hazard maps, but I'm not going to show anything about those now. They'll be covered in a different video. And again, these two guys here will be in a more advanced video. Okay, now we're going to go over some of the menu items. So the file menu, you can open your project, import images, import DTM points, import shape files. If you want to plot other types of vector layers on here, you can do that. ASCII files. You can run your 2 other processor programs from here, create a shapefile for a current time. We'll get to that when we do the animation video. Create a grid shapefile, which is just a shapefile of every cell, and the ID number is basically the only attribute. These 3 buttons depend on a screenshot of the map. So it'll be a screenshot exported to a bitmap, a screenshot copied to the clipboard, or a screenshot sent to the printer. The Create Flow 2D GIS button will create some data into the project area so you can open it in another GIS utility. So if I run this, you can see you can do it either for the grid elements or for the DTM points. So if you did it for grid elements, you're going to get a specific value, about 4 specific values for each grid element. If you did it for the DTM points, you would get those same 4 values except for every DTM point that you've loaded into the map. So this one works for the centroid, and this one works for any point that's loaded. I'm going to click OK or cancel because I've already done it, but I'll just click OK so you can see how to do it. See, right there. And then I will open this in Notepad just so you can see how it looks. And then I'll cancel out of that and go back. Uh-oh, did I close it out after? Nope, here it is. There we go. So you can see you get your X coordinate, and this is just done by grid element number. X coordinate, Y coordinate, ground elevation, water surface elevation, flow depth, or velocity. And these are your, if there isn't a value, it's because that cell didn't have any water. You come down here and you can start to see when you're picking up some values. All right, we'll go ahead and close this out for now. And let's see, file import image is the next thing on the list. So individual image, the image is back in lesson 1. And when you import your image, you see that it's set to the top layer. So you need to make an adjustment for that. If you click View menu and Layers List, you can send this to the bottom using the arrow keys and click Apply. And you can also see that if you click any of the rest of these, they are unchecked because every time you click a new map, it turns off the visibility for the last layer that you were just on. So if you want to come back and change which layer is visible, you can use the layers list. So I'll just uncheck the visibility for this one, and let's go ahead and go back to our elevation at cell, and we'll recheck the visibility for that and click apply. Whoops, sorry, I meant to do flow depth at cell. Apply there. And let's turn this one off, apply. And so you can see you can get them both at the same time. Another thing that the layers list does is you can, if you double click on any cell, you have some very basic controls on the style and labels of this system. So I'm just going to do a couple of things here. I am going to change this color ramp from white to blue, and I will reset the legend. It won't update this one, but it will update the map. And wait a second, I did do that, right? Was that? No, oh, I'm sorry, cancel that. I got the wrong one. Okay, we'll try that again. So we go from white to blue, and okay, reset the legend and apply. And so then you can see that you have some minimal controls. You can set this to 5. It's not like ArcGIS where we have quite a bit of control on what these can do. So I don't use it very often just because of that. Or you can apply some labels. And again, it's just so much easier to use ArcGIS or QGIS to do labels and stuff because you get, rendering layers, and the labels won't turn on until you're at a certain zoom, and so I don't typically use that. But it is available, so I wanted to show it to you. And then of course, I always use apply. You have to always click apply before you click OK. If you don't, and you see that you're not seeing what you expected to see, go back to View and click Redraw at the bottom. All right, let's take a quick look at some of these other options. Okay, so we've already done all of those. We've already done the zoom and pan. We've done the layers list. You can turn your grid element numbers on. I'm not going to do that right now. You can display your grid system. I'm going to turn that right back off. You can display your boundary cells. I'll turn that grid system right back off. You can turn your legend and scale on or off. All cell groups, we'll cover that later. All slices, we'll cover that later too. You can display your area of inundation. If I click this, it's actually going to calculate the area of inundation. So we'll just do that in a second. Table of variables, that's this guy here. We've already seen it. Highlight a grid element number, works just like it did in the GDS. I'm gonna go ahead and put that to 5 if it'll let us. Nope, it does not let us. Okay, so highlight, and that is that specific grid element right there. Grid element 100. All right, what else do we got here? And that's it. That's it for the view menu. Let's try the tools menu. We're not going to go over all of these. I don't mess with directory paths ever, so I'm not going to cover that. This we'll cover later. These guys are more advanced topic. Create a grid layer. That will just create a shapefile for the grid, but since we have it open in GDS, it'll probably give us an error message, but I can try it. Okay, let's see what it did. Now, if I click the lesson, I might see something that starts with an M. Nope, I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see that. Let me see if it says grid. G. Nope, I don't see that either. So I don't think that works because it was open in GDS, but that's okay. That's not a problem. If you want to create a grid layer in GDS, it's File, Create a Grid Shapefile. And then what you get here is, let's go back here, mgrid.shp. Right here, mgrid.shp. And then you can use that in any other GIS program. All right, let me go back to tools. Oh, wrong tools, pardon me. and create an area of inundation layer. Okay, exclusion polygons, we're going to maybe do right here. Flow depth profile, flooding damage, flow depth profile. Yep, that's a good one. Well, let's do flow depth profile here. And then if I click here, and then I right or double click, you'll see that it will give me the flow depth profile for those cells. Or I can get the surface elevation of those cells, or I can get the combined water surface elevation and surface elevation for those cells along that profile. You can save it as a bitmap or a text file. Oh, actually, no, you can't save it as a bitmap, but just save it as a text file. And then you can call it whatever you want. So let's go back to lesson 6. But let's just put it in here since that's and we'll call this profile plot 1. And if we go back to lesson 6, home, come in here, we can see that profile plot 1 gives you a distance, a coordinate, the flow depth, and the water surface elevation for that plot. So it's a handy little tool, very good. The next thing we have here, let's close this out. Tools, I'm doing things kind of out of order here because I'm trying to get to the easy stuff first. Plot, flood damage, exclusion polygons, advanced. We'll call this advanced. Time plots is advanced, that's part of the animation, and tree of graphs is advanced. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to go over was this creating the area of inundation layer. And if we want to compute this layer, let's just do a couple. We'll start with the default, which is set to the tall. That's the tall that you set up in GDS. And then this resolution, the higher the number, the finer the resolution is, the more vectors it has, and the more vertices each feature has. So let's set that to 50, and let's set this to 2, just so we can see it really nicely. And click apply, and that you see you get a nice area of inundation, basically covers the whole thing. Now we'll say that the area of inundation works best on grids that are kind of well connected like this. All the water's in one big blob. That works really good. And if you can know, it does not include like the channel. Well, it might include the channel, but it doesn't really include the channel or the streets. So we know this whole area, this whole street was covered in water. So we know that our whole area of inundation includes these guys. So you could delete those out. Okay, that's it for basic mapping options. All right, I did not cover any of these contour plots. We'll cover that in the next video set. So there's different kinds of contour plots, and I didn't cover animation. I didn't cover the damage calculation tool or hazard. So all of those will be covered in separate videos. I'm going to minimize this though, because what I did cover was that every time you use Mapper, you will get a shapefile for everything that you plot. And every time you make a change to a plot, the shapefile will be updated. So we just made about, let's see, area of inundation down to elevation, 18 different plots of results. We don't need all of them, but I do want to show you that you can take any of these and pop it right into GDS to help you look for issues with your project. So if you click File, Import Shapefile, you will be able to open that shapefile in GDS. Now, once you have this open in GDS, it kind of locks it for Mapper, so you can't do anything to it in Mapper. So if I wanted to do something to this, like eliminate certain values, I could go back to Mapper and make that change, but I have to remove it from GDS first. So if I go to the layers list in GDS, I'm just going to delete that layer and go back to Mapper. And any cell that you have plotted like this, you have some control over. So if I right-click this map space, I can set my minimum value to 0.2, and that will remove some of the plots. And click OK. What does it say? shapefile for the current plot was created in, oh, and it put it in a different folder because my directory path was changed when I saved that data. So let's go take a quick look. That's interesting that it changed that directory path. That's one instance where you can see that you can fix that directory path right here. Okay, so let's go here. It said it saved it here. So that was like a new location. And I don't see it. So let's see if it saved it to, that was the flow depth at cell. So flow depth at cell, and it does not really look like it updated the shape file. So let's do this real quick. Instead of this, well, first of all, let's just replot it. So let's just replot it by clicking the layer and 0.2. Okay, unable to, yeah, this is the thing that kind of annoys me with this. You have to get out of it, then try it again. Okay, now it worked. Now you can see that it worked. Now let's come back over here and flow depth at cell, and you can see that it updated the timestamp, so it updated the whole shape file. So if I bring that back into GDS, you can see that that shape file, oops, hit the wrong button, has been updated. Okay, and we'll click File, Import Shapefile, and we'll grab that maximum depth or that flow depth at cell and open it again. And you can see now that the minimum value is 0.2. And you can see that some of our values are gone. So you have some controls on that in Mapper that's pretty handy. Maximum and minimums, and you can exclusion polygons, and anything that you do to any of these shape files is updated in the shapefile itself. So then where you take it anywhere else, such as ArcGIS or QGIS, it's updated for that layer. And then if you want to get that back, you just reload Mapper and plot it again, and it will overwrite that. It'll overwrite that shapefile and get you back to your regular data. So that's Mapper. That is the simplest way to use Mapper. I'm going to stop the video now, and the next video will cover contour mapping.